When it comes to the golf course information that I like to cover in my preview videos, I like to go over the tournament fact sheets first. This gives you a lot of data points you can use for researching. If you are unfamiliar with the site, it is the GCSAA, so you see the acronym right up here, .org, that's the website. Go there, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll see the tournament fact sheets. The very first one you see for 2023 will be the US Open because it goes from newest to oldest. You can see all of the tournaments that are there. For any time that the superintendent or the director of golf course and grounds provides this information for the PGA Tour, you can find it here at the GCSAA. Again, these are data points that I like to use. You can see where the location is. Obviously, the Los Angeles Country Club is in Los Angeles, California. That's pretty simple. It is a par 70, 35-35, running at 7,400 yards, and a lot of times these tournament fact sheets provide the stimp meter. There are some websites that use this data, and if you want to, I think, what is it, Fantasy National does like lightning quick or something to that effect. You could use that information at your disposal. I think it's fine because when it comes to fast greens, there are putters on tour that are better on fast greens than they are on slow greens, and vice versa. You're going to probably see that within the data that you research. So go ahead and use that as a piece of information when researching which golfers you want to play this week. The big thing that I like to go to when it comes to the tournament fact sheets is the turf grass. You just see what the greens use, the collars, the approaches, tees, fairways, rough. The one thing to note, on the greens as well as the collars, which a lot of people will call fringe, that is pure distinction creeping bent grass, or just bent grass for short. You can use any bent grass that you want. They're really there are different strains of bent grass, but you don't really have to get that narrow when it comes to your research. Bent grass pretty much grows the same. A lot of the strains are exactly the same. Some are more resistant to other factors, environmental factors like sun, sometimes rain, sea, stuff like that. So you don't really have to worry too much about bent grass. And if you really want to get kind of specific with your research here, you would use strokes gained putting on bent grass. That way you can, make a distinction when it comes to your research as to what types of putters you're looking for. I personally will use bent grass average finishing positions as well as top 10 success rates on bent grass golf courses. I will also mix in Bermuda grass when it comes to my golf course grass that I'm using. And if you want to get narrow with this, you would just use approaches and around the green, because you can see approaches, Bermuda grass, fairways, Bermuda grass, rough, Bermuda grass as well. And just so you are aware, I actually have this in the cheat sheet. If you scroll over to columns AA to AH, you can see the first few are bent grass, and then the next ones after that are Bermuda. And you're going to see that is how many events they've played, their average finishing position. This dates back to 2013, by the way. So too does their top 10 success rate. So you can kind of see, let me zoom in so you guys can see this a little bit better. So you can see top 10 bent percentage. That just is their success rates on bent grass. Last year bent grass means one full calendar year from this day going backwards. This is their average finishing position. And I also have all of that information with Bermuda. This also, when I talk about the model tomorrow, will be included in the sweet spot rank. And the sweet spot rank is already populated. I don't think that's going to change. If we get like some withdrawals and some new golfers added, the rankings could change. But honestly, your number one golfer is going to always, it's going to be Jon Rahm for me, even when we do this tomorrow, because I go over the sweet spot ranks tomorrow. I don't cover it today. But if you wanted a sneak peek, check out the cheat sheet. This is what I have in my model so far, which again includes the grasses. That's why I mentioned it. So this is available for you on the cheat sheet. Now, coming back to this, you can see, another big thing to think about is maybe the length of the rough. Looks like it's going to be 3 to 4 inches. This golf course is interesting. I'll talk a little bit more. I'll go over kind of the breakdown that I have for what kind of shot shapes matter, in my opinion. But I think it's going to be a very firm and fast golf course. A lot of people talk about how using the ground is going to matter, much like a British Open, or, you know, the people across the pond called the Open. It's going to play a lot like that from, you know, a lot of the people that have been at the golf course or who know about this golf course. A lot of shots will be played on the ground. So firm and fast in the fairways. And the fairways are very wide, by the way. We're not going to get that information on the tournament fact sheets here, but that is something worth noting. I did the flyover. I couldn't believe how wide some of these fairways were. I think someone said one of the fairways is 75 yards wide. Yeah, you could land a plane on that. Like, that's pretty wide. The defense of this golf course is going to be the fast and firm part. So there are some interesting fairways that are contoured, you know, in one direction or another. So let's say if you have a fairway that tilts from right to left, a golfer hitting a draw is probably going to bound off of that fairway, whereas a golfer hitting a fade into that fairway is going to be more beneficial, because a fade into a fairway that goes from right to left is going to hold the fairway a little bit easier than the opposite if you were to hit a draw into it. So it's something to make note of. You can go and check the flyover on the USGA website. They have the course, and then they also have, you know, flyover, or if you want to see the scorecard, you certainly can see it there. So remember all that information, use it at your disposal. You can also use Architects George Thomas, as well as Gil Hance. That's a big name with they call it restoration, but renovations. You can see that with a Gil Hance. They usually, Gil Hance is known for bringing a golf course back to the original design, but updating it for the current times. You know, this golf course was built in 1927. They didn't have 460cc drivers made out of titanium and composite materials. They had wooden clubs. You had your persimmons that came out, you know, shortly after. You didn't have the golf ball you did. You didn't have the technology you did. So, you know, without restoration or renovation, a lot of the golf courses become obsolete, become a little easier. So one of Gil Hance's big things is kind of restoring a golf course back to the original character, but enhancing it enough to be viable for today's times. So you can use these architects for your data points when researching. That's why I mentioned it. And then obviously you have some additional notes here that if you want to take a look at, you certainly can. I don't think it really matters all that much, so I'm not going to go over any of those. One thing that I like to do is I like to kind of map out the golf course. A lot of people do try to figure out, you know, do shot shapes matter here and there. I typically have notes, but I was running behind. I didn't have notes for all 18 holes. I just wanted to provide one, because the par 5 on hole 14 doesn't look by the naked eye from the flyover that it's a hole that is easily attackable, you know, going 4 and 2. Looks like it would be much better if you played it in 3 shots trying to get to the green as opposed to 2. So that's why I mentioned that there. I do believe like that's one of those fairways that goes from left to right. Yeah, it's going to go from left to right on the screen. That golfers are going to have to hit a draw into. But I think with any type of club, and the fairway in the first portion of that fairway is pretty wide, then you have kind of a blind shot, and the fairway, again, it contours from left to right. Golfers, like right-handed golfers, will have the ball below their feet. And when you're trying to hit a shot, like a draw would be very beneficial to hit there. When you're trying to hit that shot from that kind of lie, it's nearly impossible. You just hit something low, and you hit something smothered and low. So it wouldn't be a beneficial shot there. These golfers could probably do it though. You know, they're the best golfers in the world. Or you just hit a high fade if that's possible, because there's trees in the way that you kind of have to hit it over. So it really depends on how the golfers play this golf course. One of the best things that I've ever heard, I think Andy Lack provided it, or his guest did, was that golfers that are cerebral, as in golfers that are very strategic, will play this golf course. Well, he didn't say it as a definitive, but basically those types of golfers will play this golf course the best, where you had to think your shot every single hole. Now that's a lot like every golf course, but there are some courses out there you can just bomb it without even thinking about it. So golfers that come to mind for me when it comes to that, if this is more of a strategic golf course than any other one, especially with the firm and fast and playing it on the ground and stuff like that, like the first couple golfers that come to mind would be like a Patrick Cantlay, like a Scotty Scheffler. Like those guys kind of play, Jordan Spieth even. Those guys are, you can tell they think their way around a golf course. I don't have the player list right in front of me, but I mean, here, let's take a look. Yeah, like Scotty, I like. Rahm, sure. I actually do like Brooks, because Brooks is very cerebral with his strategy on a golf course. I mean, that's kind of how he won the PGA Championship. Just hit to the middle of the green every single hole. He could do that here at the US Open and be in contention very easily. Cantlay, I think, is very cerebral. Didn't say that about Victor Hovland, but Victor Hovland's extremely talented. Rory, I would say, is cerebral, but his control's not super great. I think Max Homa and Xander are also cerebral. So too is Jordan Spieth. I'm not going to go through all of these golfers, but if you know golfers who think their way through this golf course, and it's not, you know, them relying on their driver or, you know, some kind of bomb and gouge method. That's, I mean, like Justin Rose down here, by the way. Another guy. Corey Connors, another guy who play intelligent shots every single time. I think that would benefit, those golfers would be beneficial at this tournament. On the screen, you can see what I kind of mapped out for draws and fades. It does kind of look like draws are a bit more useful at this golf course. Now, when I map something out, I'm looking for scoring potential. These shots aren't necessary. These shots, in my opinion, are the best scoring possibilities for our golfers. So, like on hole 1, if you're going for the green in 2, hitting a draw because there's a huge bunker on the left side of the green, something that shapes around that. Also, there's a landing area to the right of the green. If you can land it there with it bouncing left, so with the right-handed golfer, that'd be hitting a draw. By the way, for lefties, just flip what you see on the screen. So draws would be fades, fades would be draws. Well, what I have on the screen is from a right-handed golfer's perspective. So that's kind of what I mapped out. Not a lot of, you know, like it just, any type of shot shape is going to be beneficial here. I think the main thing that I want you to take away from this is these shot shapes probably are mitigated by golfers who are very strategic. You know, golfers who are going to use every inch of the 75-yard wide fairways. You know, a golfer who's going to play all the way to the right for one hole location and then to the left of another. There will be golfers out there that are going to try to test those limits. So if you know those types of golfers, by all means, feel comfortable in playing them. When it comes to shot shape, I don't think it really matters. But again, I include this in my cheat sheet. So if you went to that cheat sheet and you went to column P, you can see I have shot shapes for most of these guys. I can update some of these for you. I know that those two golfers, again, I need to come through here and update this. But anyways, that's kind of what I have for the golf course. You know, there are really good course previews out there by people who pay a little bit more attention. One thing to always note is, or at least something to be cognizant of, there's going to be a lot of fluff. If you can't determine or distinguish from what someone's saying as to what's going to benefit a golfer or what kind of golfer benefits from what these people are saying, ignore it. Skip past it. Like, there's a lot of fluff that people talk about, and you just have to ignore it and just move on. So be cognizant of that. You know, you don't have to listen to a full 2-hour pod or a 1.5-hour pod of someone talking about a golf course and the nerdy things that come around that golf course. If it doesn't help you paint a picture of what kind of golfer is going to do well here, it's just fluff. But if you're interested in that, by all means, listen to it. Now, moving on from there, let's talk about the tournament. It's the U.S. Open. You know, there are so many positions available. Like, there were 25 positions available, if I remember, that golfers were able to qualify. You and me could qualify at this event if our handicap was good enough for the qualifier. Some people's aren't, and that's why you can't play in those. But you and I could easily try to qualify for this and make it. That's what's great about these Open Championships. This is the United States Open Championship, so it is the national championship for the U.S. 156 golfers in the field. I believe it's going to be top 65 in ties. It could be top 70. I did not come prepared for that information. I just remember PGA Championship, their cut rules. Like, all these major championships have their own cut rules. So I'm not positive off the top of my head. I'm sure it's top 65 in ties. Yeah, I'm not even going to look it up right now. If for whatever reason you need to go look into it, by all means do so. I don't think it really matters. It's going to be top 16 ties or higher, essentially. Out of 156, that means more golfers will miss the cut than make the cut. That's always something to take into consideration. Another thing to note, we'll go over this in the Pass Optimal and GPP winning lineups, like that segment of the preview video, but there are some golfers down here you just don't play. These are golfers that qualified for this event through the qualifiers. Wonderful, they made the tournament, more likely not going to win. And when we go over Pass Optimal and GPP winning lineups, you're not going to see an unknown golfer, like a creative player. You won't see one of those guys inside the top 10, and you probably won't see anyone inside the top 20. It's kind of like what I said with the PGA Championship. Do not play any of the PGA pros, like the PGA members. Then Michael Block finishes 15th. Still wasn't in the optimal lineup, and that was the first time we saw, you know, a PGA professional finish inside the top 20 in like the last 10 years. If probably even longer than that. Now, Michael Campbell won the U.S. Open, I believe, a while ago, and he was one of those qualifiers that made it. That's a possibility. I like to play the numbers. So I'll just ignore them. I'm not going to worry about them. That'll eliminate them from my player pool. My player pool will be much smaller because of it. I think you do the same thing. Our strength of field's pretty decent, 857. I think the highest I've ever seen was 918, and that would have been the PGA Championship at Kiowa Island, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, this is a major championship, so we're gonna have all the golfers, you know, looking for legacy. That just your best golfers in the field, or your best golfers in the world, will be in this field. As for the rest of the tournament information, I think that's it. We could go. I was gonna say we could go over average cut, like the average score for a cut, or the average score for winning, like the average winning score. I don't think it really matters. You know, this golf course, USGA is going to try to get something at -6, -4 to -6, something like that. Most likely won't go lower than that, but obviously it's a possibility. So I would use that information, you know, use that for your data researches too. -6 is probably a good score. If you need a range, just do -3 to -7. I think that's probably where we're going to see the winning score come from. So that covers the tournament and golf course information for the 2023 US Open.